stated it all already. So yeah, I think that postponing that game was a pretty good move, especially considering the timing. Nobody's being inconvenienced. They play in the same building. They'll find the time to play it when it's appropriate. Now, another thing that I think is, I hope the pro basketball does do, or Naismith, is like what happened with Roberto Clemente. I do hope that Kobe Bryant does get inducted into the Hall of Fame this year in August. This would set precedent for what happened with Roberto Clemente when he died in that plane crash back in 1972, December 31st, and his number was retired by the Pirates, and he was inducted in the Hall of Fame right away. Now, people have asked, it hasn't been done yet. I'm kind of surprised because Jackie Robinson's number 24 was retired by Major League Baseball. I'm kind of surprised at Roberto Clemente. But what are your thoughts about Kobe Bryant being inducted into this year's Hall of Fame? It's not like he has to wait 5 years to play again. We know that's not going to happen.
Well, the jury's still out on it. I think they ought to. There's just a lot of stuff going on. Today is Dr. Jerry Buss's, the old owner of the Lakers, birthday. So there's a lot. This has really, really hit people hard, and they're trying to figure out the best way to handle a lot of the things that are coming out and everything else. But I think it'd be a class move, and I wouldn't surprise me one bit if the NBA decides to do it in his first year and go ahead and induct him, because it's a layup that he'll get inducted. So you might as well do it now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, really. If everybody's mourning him the way he is, then yeah, I think he should get in. And I believe that actually, Bill, that really, really will happen. There's a lot to digest. Everybody's still in shock over the situation. So when cooler heads prevail, Kobe will be part of the class of 2020. So tell me, when this occurred, what was going through your mind, and how did you hear about it?
Well, I was watching television, and then I was also on my, with my phone, and there was a drop-down thing on my phone. It gave me an alert, and immediately I got pissed off because to lose someone like that, and no disrespect to Ted, his pilot error, and what I mean by that, the pilot was a really good pilot. All right, but I watched some interviews with some of the people that heard the crash, because nobody could see it, because the guy said it was like being thrown into a pool of milk and then opening your eyes. That's how thick the fog was.
Right.
And it's beyond my comprehension how they let the pilot go up in that kind of fog, and it was a really bad wreck. And I'm sure that, it's something that it ticked me off, because I sit back and, a lot of the plane and helicopters are pretty safe, but usually accidents happen due to error, mistakes made by people either giving directions to the pilot or the pilot itself, or sometimes mechanical error. And I just think it's such a waste. And, what's really interesting is Kobe wouldn't fly with his wife. Just for something like this, so they kind of knew that something like this could happen, first of all. And I also want to give out my condolences to the other people that died in the plane wreck.
Right.
It's not just about Kobe, but the reality of it is that, my initial reaction was shock and disbelief, but then I get angry because I sit back and go, this is nothing more than people not paying attention to detail.
Right.
Kobe was so far ahead of, because of his work ethic, and because he had retired and was such a family man, the reason he flew in helicopters was he didn't want to get stuck in traffic for 2 hours,
right.
Missing his kids' events and those types of things. All right, and the pilot, that was his pilot, all right, and he was a real good pilot. But to go down like something like this, it's something that shouldn't have happened. All right, and that's the thing that I get angry at, So we'll see. It's interesting to see what the investigation has to say. But that was my initial impulse: shock and disbelief. and a little bit of anger. And, and you watch what's going on in California, you wonder if people are really doing their jobs the right way because of all the other nonsense that's going on out there.
Right.
I mean, the farther west you go, I hate to say this, the more crazier it gets.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived there in the 90s, and we'll save this conversation for somewhere else. But I really believe some of these states out in California are unraveling. So it doesn't surprise me. We have a lot of forest fires out there. There's a lot of problems out there with the state right now. It's being overrun. Okay, and you just wonder whether or not, this. I just believe this whole thing could have been avoided if people had just taken their time, and done it the right way rather than pushing someone out into the fog and putting, a guy like that and the rest of the crew at risk. So that was my original thoughts.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I'll second the thought that I would like to express my deepest condolences to the families that lost loved ones as well, and let alone the fact that Kobe Bryant's 13-year-old daughter was involved in the crash. So to think that Kobe and his oldest daughter, he still has a wife and 3 young kids. I mean, can you imagine what Mrs. Bryant's going to have to deal with going forward, knowing that she's a single parent and one of those children is only 7 months old? That to me is eerie. It just is.
Yeah, it is. This is why, we have an expression, one day at a time.
Yeah, I kind of like live every day as before your last, and I'd like to joke around sometimes. If Morris had 9 lives, I like to make the most of the one I have, but no matter how you really word it, Bill, that's the way you have to approach life, because nobody's guaranteeing you tomorrow. You don't know when the man upstairs or any particular error leads you to what you can be. You can always try to act on the side of caution, but you can't control what the other individuals are doing. Today, as I was driving down Sample Road and Power Line, and we had a flashing red light, there was no cops around there to direct traffic. You don't know who's going to cause the first incident that would lead to a problem that could not only be expensive but fatal. And, I was with a cousin today, and, we talked about the Kobe crash just briefly, and, she lives in New York. And I said, if it were me, and that's just me, I would rather live in California with the freeways than have to deal with the subways, just because at least if I drive, okay, I can control my own destiny. But anybody that knows about LA, you're right, Bill, the traffic is ridiculous, and you have 9 million freeways, and it doesn't make a lick of difference anyways. It doesn't change the fact that, that place is spread out, and it's still a mess.
Well, let's put it this way. I lived there in the 70s. When Gold's Gym was first starting out, and the women used to look through the window and they were afraid to come in. Then when I went out there in the 90s, and you forget that's my office. Right. I strength trained and worked out a lot, so that's basically what a big part of my job description was, is being a professional weightlifter and trainer to increase athletic performance. And then I went back out there in the 90s, and Gold's Gym was this big corporation, and I would say you go in there and it was 30 or 40% women, a lot. And you just saw how the corporation had grown. And I remember meeting Pete Grimkowski, and he had bought in the gym. And he was painting houses. He's a multimillionaire, and basically what he did is he was able to make Gold's into the $1 million enterprise that it is now through the mail order business and calendars and everything else. Now, that was in the 90s, and I saw California changing quite a bit. It started getting crazy. You can just imagine what it's like out there right now. And what's really funny is Kobe took off from John Wayne Airport and was flying up to Calabasas. I know those areas real well. I've flown into John Wayne a couple of times, and I couldn't believe how much traffic was there and how many people actually live there.
Really?
And what's really interesting, I live in Texas now. We have a lot of people that are moving in from California because they can't afford to live there anymore.
Right.
And, and you see what's going on with other countries, other cities in the state. So I always like to think that, Kobe paid a huge price for being ahead of his time, and really the reason he did helicopters was he was trying to limit his commuting time because the man is so busy, he's a workaholic.
Right.
And also is a real good family man. And the thing that separated Kobe from a lot of people, and I like to, maybe it was a little bit of a bond, is he was starting out, and I had already finished a pro career and had done really well as a broker. Now I'm trying to work as an actor, and I still had the same approach. work your tail off, go to acting class, do all that stuff. So, that's the bond with a lot of people out in Los Angeles is they appreciate people that work really, really hard. And those are the people that were Kobe's fans. The guys that get up in the morning at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, 2-hour commute to work all day, come home, do the same thing all over again. Because Kobe had that kind of work ethic as well. It's a shame, okay, that, this happened because of a man's, zest for life and trying to be good at something else. And quite frankly, Kobe was going to be a guy that was going to be hugely successful in business, was going to take, people and dissect things and give them what we call that higher energy or that higher knowledge about sports or business or whatever. Heck, his daughter was already talking about, Gigi was already talking about being, a WNBA, NBA basketball player. Okay, and, that was one of the clips that I saw a lot. So Kobe really enjoyed his family, really enjoyed life, but he had an assassin's mantra for business. There was no nonsense. Okay, and that's what I picked up on him the first time I met him. I mean, here comes a guy, 18 years old, who comes walking into the gym. Everybody kind of knows who he is. I'm sitting looking at this guy going, okay, I've met Magic, I've met all these great basketball players. You're a little above average and everything else, but holy smokes, to watch this guy, be the Black Mamba all those 20 years, man, wow. You can't always judge a book by its cover, but the quiet work ethic, the things that people didn't see. Okay, I saw in glimpses at Golds, okay, and it was our bond. And it would be great to see him every once in a while. Hey, great game the other night, Kobe. He walked by me and just high-five him, and just continue to work. And it was just really special to me, and and also to watch him have the career that he had. And it's a shame that God decided to take him home.
Yeah, let me add a couple things before we close out the broadcast. I know you talk about a lot of Californians migrating to Texas, Houston, and all that. They also lived in Arizona as well. I lived in that state for a couple of years, and I dealt with a lot of them. They're certainly interesting. But I think when you put things in perspective, Greg Popovich lost the game yesterday, but you know what? He really didn't care about the loss. He was more emotional about Kobe Bryant. And Popovich had a chance to not only work with Bryant through his Olympic activity, but compete against him. So, I think Popovich is certainly a Hall of Famer in his own right. Whether I agree with some of the things he says politically or not, it's not for this show. But you know what? I think that's the universal feeling about Kobe Bryant in general. Some people that are around the L.A. area that have worked with him. But, being from the Detroit area, Bill, when it comes to blue-collar work ethic, there's no question about it that you can appreciate a blue-collar individual that's doing everything that he can to work to be the best that he can. So, unfortunately, I hope we don't have as many somber broadcasts as we need. This was one that was unfortunately unavoidable. So, any final thoughts, Bill?
No, I'm glad, Scott, that you thought enough of me to allow me to talk about Kobe. My heart goes out to the families, and I just hope that people will take a look and introspect, which is what Kobe was really good at. And just think about how blessed they are to be here in this country, have the opportunities to go out and pursue something that you love to do. And that was what Kobe was all about. And, we should remember that in his memory and just look back with fond memories and, all the great things that he did. And hopefully over time, he'll settle in and, just be like Babe Ruth. Because that's really what it's going to be. I mean, people will remember him. He'll be timeless, and everybody will remember him for who he is. And it's a sad state of affairs, but it is what it is.
Yeah, Kobe Bryant dead at the age of 41. His daughter passing away at 13. As we do on every show, whether it's this one or the Sports Exchange, Bill, go ahead and let people know how they can follow you, and then I'll close out with us. Go ahead.
Well, of course, you can find me on Facebook under Bill Winters. You go to my YouTube channel and type in Bill Winters, but type in the name football afterwards. A purple